Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor?
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree.
You're gonna get corona from Mona. Don't vaccinate.
Kamala Harris says that it is time to make time to do what we've already been doing, and that time is every day. And if you lose track of time, you're supposed to make a time machine and go back in time to make up for that lost time. With that being said, it's time to introduce our very special guest. That is John Ondrasik of Five for Fighting. He's a Grammy nominated or Grammy winning.
I lost to U2, which was really lame. They only have 40 of them.
My God.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Still, I'm sure it's an honor to be nominated, even though deep down we're all like, fuck.
I'm not bitter.
Anyways, John, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everyone find you on social media? Where, give us those plugs.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. fiveforfighting.com. So next time YouTube takes my video down, you can go check it out there. But, the devil Twitter, you see the thing there, the John Ondrasik at Twitter, Facebook. I have this week set up my Parler and my Rumble account because I figured that I needed to put the video there, considering what happened. But yeah, I am on that hell named Twitter. So I guess, I'll see the rest of you there.
And Jay?
Yes. So you can find me over at Assliken over on Twitter. It's ASSLIKEN. I've been banned off of Twitter multiple times. So I've gone through so many iterations on my handle, and this is where I fell. And to be fair, I gave it up to the Habibis to on a poll, and they actually chose it. I don't know what gave them the idea, but they actually chose it.
Spencer, get in here.
Yeah. All right. So my Twitter is @Spencer_Sachs. Follow me there. Follow the Habibi Bros Twitter account, and follow us on Rumble and YouTube and all that stuff.
All right, you're fired, Spencer. John, of course, please be as demeaning towards Spencer as you possibly can. And before we go any further, obviously, if you want to catch this full episode, completely raw, uncut, don't check out locals. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Habibi Bros. You can always also follow us on Rumble, subscribe there. We are on YouTube, and both of us are on Twitch, and we air every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. East. We haven't done an exclusive episode in quite some time, and the reason for that is both Jay and I are boomers, and our schedules just did not line up at the end of 2021. But John, we're very glad to have you on because, for one, you are our first guest in a very long time, and we're feeling a bit rusty as always, so forgive us. But the very first thing I need to ask you, because this is going to be very important for you to think about by the end of the show, and that is, in your infinite wisdom, can you write the lyrics to a vaccine song by the end of this show? And if you have any question what I mean by like a vaccine song, let me just give you just a little bit of an example. Which is the cringiest one I could go with?
The Jimmy Fallon one or the Barbie parody?
Pfizer girl.
Hiya, Pfizer.
Hi, Ben.
You got any extra shots?
Sure, Ben.
Sleeves up.
I'm a Pfizer girl in a COVID world. I'm the classic, mRNA-tastic, 95%. There's no argument. Got no contagion with my vaccination.
Come on, Pfizer, let's go party.
With a fast line.
Come on, Pfizer, let's go travel. have to do this again for my second shot.
Oh, I love you, Ben.
I don't think I can top that.
Right.
Jesus.
You just have to think of cringe. That is the cringiest thing you can think of.
Cringe your syringe.
If you need a picture of Siraj to motivate you on what is cringe, we can make that happen.
Oh, good. I'll take any inspiration.
Okay, great. So, for those of you who have never ever listened to John's music, he is the lead singer and songwriter of the band Five for Fighting, which, by the way, took me a very long time to figure out exactly the inspiration behind that name. You're a big hockey guy.
Born and raised hockey guy. When I made my first record, it was the late 90s. It was the age of Lilith Fair and boy bands and grunge music. Siraj, you were like 7. And the record company said, we need a band name because the male singer songwriter is dead. And I was a little bit insulted. I just come from an LA Kings game. Back in the day, there was these brawlers named Marty McSorley and Bob Probert, and they'd drop the gloves. So I sarcastically spit out to them, well, let's call the whole project Five for Fighting, expecting them to hate it. And they're like, we love it. And I'm like, you're psycho. And early in my career, I'd take any gig, but they would only book me in heavy metal gigs, right? So I'd be playing Superman and people would be moshing in front of me. It was very odd. But wow. It's paid off. If I want to go to a game and I need a hockey ticket, they tend to let me in.
That's excellent. I'm a big hockey guy as well. Although, my very first game I ever went to, I'm from Hartford, Connecticut, so I went to a Hartford Whalers game.
Sure.
Yeah, so I got tons of Whalers gear, and when they left in '97, basically the whole sport for me died, and I haven't really adopted a team since.
I can tell you're very sad.
No, it honestly, like, you can ask anyone that knows me really well. I have tons of Whalers gear and just no way to root for anyone. So
Kevin Deneen, whenever I play Hartford, we always talk about the Whalers, and there'll always be someone out there with a jersey on. And it's just so sad. It was such a wonderful team for the town, and it was
lovable losers.
Yeah, you know what? That's all right. Well, we'll find you a team. You can always jump on my bandwagon. I'm a Kings fan.
I appreciate it.
I just started watching hockey this year because I was living overseas for most of my life over in Abu Dhabi. So they don't watch any American sports whatsoever. So I got into soccer. But when I came over here and I got to see hockey, which is similar rules to soccer, but a lot more meat.
Sure.
Like, it's not boring at all. There's something happening all the time. It's insane.
And guys don't flop in hockey. So
no,
they don't roll around on the ground.
Yeah.
They would get knocked out if they tried.
So while we kind of let you marinate on the lyrics of creating your own vaccine song, John, there's another song that you just came out with, obviously a little bit more serious, way more serious, and kind of watching your music video really fucked me up inside because I had to basically, and again, like, I feel like obviously very privileged in saying this because I had to relive that experience. We weren't even in Afghanistan. And during this whole debacle, you wrote a song, you produced it. The video just came out last week called Blood on My Hands. And interestingly enough, YouTube took it down because it was too gory and graphic. And as a flipping the middle finger to YouTube for taking it down, we're going to go ahead and play the song in its entirety right now.
Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
It took the Taliban just 1 week to regain control of Afghanistan.
Disaster unfolding very quickly.
This is really an American catastrophe.
Secretary of State Blinken declaring this is manifestly not Saigon.
Afghans who helped the West now fearing for their lives.
10,000 civilians, SIV applicants.
Millions more are left behind.
And then this, an act of utter despair. Several fell from the sky.
Afghan mothers passing their children to American soldiers over an airport wall.
It is insane. There are people holding their American passports.
I can't believe the world abandoned Afghanistan. Our friends are going to get killed. They're going to kill us.
The Taliban now has a list of people who are working for the Americans. This effectively can be turned into a kill list.
It's a suicide attack.
120 people have been injured. 13 U.S. troops are also among the casualties.
We will respond with force and precision at our time, at the place we choose, in the moment of our choosing.
7 innocent children and 3 innocent adults dead.
They assessed what the US had left behind. The Taliban forces parading captured American weapons.
Americans also forgot to destroy biometric devices.
Extraordinary success.
Total failure by the United States government.
These Afghan allies who desperately need our evacuation.
This is a betrayal of the American military.
By doing everything in my power right now to get people out.
Got blood on my hands. Got blood on my hands. And I don't understand what's happening.
For those who remain, we will make arrangements to get them out.
There's blood on these hands. They're still American.
Please, sir, please. I want you to help me, my family.
Left to the Taliban, and he. Now how's that happening?
Any Afghans may leave the country, including those who work for Americans.
Winking, blinking, can't you look me in the eye?
If they want, and for whatever reason.
Willie, Millie, tell me, when did you decide this will defend your sacred motto now means never
This comes
mind?
down to an issue of will and leadership.
Hands. Got blood on my hands. Got blood on my hands. Flag of the Taliban, and he over Afghanistan. General Austin, is there no honor in shame? Can you spell Bagram without the letters in blame? Did Uncle Joe stick a drip in your vein?
Do you have any regrets about the Afghan withdrawal?
Hands. I can't hear her scream. If she's not on TV. And I can't hear him scream. If he's not on TV. To every Afghan ally that we left behind, every child who won't know freedom, faces covered and blind, is for this American promise now shit in the fire. Hands. There's blood on our hands. Just one American, and he asking what's happening.
You once said, America is the light of the world.
How do you feel about America now?
America not only has lied to the Afghan people, it's lying to itself. I mean, the betrayal is not the collapse of a system only. The betrayal is about fate of millions of people. I mean, who is going to take the words of this administration and probably the future administration seriously? Who?
Do you have any words for President Biden or former presidents who have all led us to where we are now?
I tell them to ask their children, grandchildren, I ask them, their neighbors, to write them a piece of one-page history of America and as far as Afghanistan is concerned. That will be like a mirror put in front of them to see the reality of themselves.
I was just about to say there was an excerpt at the very end of that video, basically making someone from Afghanistan, I believe the name was, let's see.
It was Amrullah Saleh, the former vice president of Afghanistan.
Amrullah Saleh in December 20th, 2021, basically saying that why would anyone trust the United States after what they did? Which I feel like any rational person who observed what happened in Afghanistan would make that same analysis, because why would you, John?
Right. No, it was important for me to have an Afghan kind of have the last word. But I think you're right. He also said, Afghanistan's like a mirror to America, and I found that very powerful, and I think it's true. I mean, if we look in that mirror, it's like, who are we right now? I think Afghanistan reflects a crossroads in this country. It's like, are we Normandy? Are we the Berlin Wall? Or do we leave our citizens and our allies we swore to protect to terrorists? And I think it goes down, you go down the list. We claim to care about women's rights in this country. We're all the women's activists who like to lecture us on women's rights. They're crickets on Afghanistan. I have friends that are working the evacs who have a list of gay and lesbian people they're trying to get out because their partners are being beheaded in front of them. So where are all these gay rights activists? So I think Afghanistan is showing us a lot about who we are as a nation. And I think our adversaries certainly understand that too. Look, next time we talk, I'm sure Putin will probably be in Ukraine. China, if they're looking for a window to hit Taiwan, well, why not this administration? So the geopolitical kind of ramifications of Afghanistan go way beyond just the withdrawal. And we're not even talking about the massive famine that we're experiencing as we speak. So,
I think that not many people are really talking about the dire human rights situation that's happening in Afghanistan at the moment. In fact, I recall, Jay, we went live. We had Batya Ungar-Sargon on as a guest. Basically, the day of the terrorist attack at Kabul International Airport, and there was I'm trying to remember, kind of going back and replaying everything in my mind, but Jay, I mean, how angry were you with all of that? I was fucking furious.
I was fuming over what was going on in Afghanistan as we were having a sort of debate with her on, and she was a great guest and everything, voicing her opinion and being respectful and all of that kind of stuff. But I felt that she was very wrong in her rationality in saying that the withdrawal was a success, because I felt like those people in that camp wanted to be out of Afghanistan and saying that the forever wars and all that kind of stuff is wrong and all that kind of stuff. So this justifies, no matter what happens, it's still right to withdraw. And I'm like, one thing has nothing to do with the other. You can be against the forever war and actually condemn what you're seeing right now. And it's really funny that, when I say funny, I mean really sad and pathetic that we're not looking at the Afghan withdrawal like a national tragedy, like something at the caliber of 9/11 or Vietnam or something at that caliber. We have everybody on here on CNN and MSNBC trying to pretend like January 6th was such a national tragedy when we have this example of a complete and utter failure of what it is to be America happening right in front of their face. And nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hold any of these people accountable. There hasn't been one person who resigned over this. Once you saw those people falling off of the planes, I was expecting a resignation for each death that happened because it was a complete failure. And they made that happen.
Well, to your point, to your point, sorry to jump in, but anybody that talks about extraordinary success to me is just parroting the political narrative that some hacks in the White House try to come up with to divert attention from what actually happened for the tribal left. For even the evacuation was a disaster because 60,000 people that were not vetted. So you're right, and people ask me, why do I hammer Milley and Austin even more than Biden? And it's to your point, Jay. I think if Milley or Austin in that room where they say they told the president to keep 2,000 troops there, do not abandon Bagram, extend the deadline, whatever, if they would have threatened to resign, I think we may not be here. This whole thing has been a political act. Biden wanted to, on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, to stand on a podium and say, we got out of Afghanistan, isn't that great? And if they would have resigned or threatened to resign, it may have changed the dynamic, changed their behavior. And the fact that they did not resign is a great disgrace. When I talk to the veterans who've really inspired me, every single one of them to a man says Milley and Austin have dishonored the uniform by leaving their allies behind. Suicide hotlines have skyrocketed for our veterans. So you're right. And I think they're going to carry that to their grave. There's clip you saw of Austin in the video. I was there at the Reagan. That was not 4 months ago. That was 2 weeks ago. And when they asked him if he had any regrets, to be fair, he mentioned the 13 soldiers that were killed. He mentioned the drone strike, and then he went right into the extraordinary airlift. So, as you said, the fact that there's been no accountability, no one's been fired. They took over Kabul in a week. They said it would take 6 months. Nobody at the Pentagon was fired. That's the scary thing because it's Orwellian now. If you can't admit that this was a disaster, as I said, why would China not go into Taiwan? So I agree with you 100%. It's outrageous.
Essentially, every time someone says 100% or someone says essentially, we gotta drink, even if we're not drinking alcohol. Which
because it's a
John, you're basically a Habibi now. You're a Habibi now. You got to get in on the inside jokes and basically the power hour stuff. Spencer just notified me that the U.S. sent $308 million in aid to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I don't know what that money is going to be going to because basically the Taliban has taken over entirely. And who knows what they're actually going to be using that money for. It's not like it's going to be dropped off in capable hands. Spencer, you're muted. What's up?
It's earmarked specifically for it says, according to this NBC News article, talking about hunger and vaccine doses. So it's kind of earmarked already. Vaccine doses, quoting it.
To fulfill that equity quota.
Fauci will save Afghanistan.
Are represented.
So that's what's kind of earmarked for. Just for knowledge.
John, my next question, I mean, January 6th was referenced and how it was sort of made, these parallels have been made to 9/11. You've had the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, get it on the 1 year anniversary of January 6th and say Pearl Harbor, 9/11, January 6th. Your song Superman became sort of an anthem for 9/11 heroes. When you hear the Vice President of the United States say that January 6th was just as bad, if not worse, or equating it even not to just Pearl Harbor, but also 9/11.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind? And I can only imagine if it's anything short of an aneurysm, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, there's words for it that I probably shouldn't say here, but it's certainly insulting to the families who lost loved ones of 9/11. It's insulting to the heroes. Pearl Harbor, I mean, that's not even worth discussing. And this is saying that I think January 6th was a disgrace. I think what happened there was a disgrace. The fact that President Trump did not come out with a blowhorn and say, you guys got to go home, quit, was a disgrace, and it'll tarnish his legacy. But as usual, the Democrats try to take things and they go so far that they make themselves look like fools. They did not need to compare this to Pearl Harbor. You had Majority Leader McConnell come out and say a couple hours after what a horrible disgrace this was. I think we all realize that cannot happen again. I have friends in Congress who were scared to death. They were hiding under their desk. That can happen again. But when you drop the hyperbole, you lose the argument. And it's just it's ridiculous, but it's typical. It's typical. Let's have a candlelight vigil. Let's play up the optics. And again, I think it's hard beyond the tribal, loyalists that we have on our side too, for that to resonate in the culture. And I think they just become kind of a spectacle and a joke for the middle of the country that kind of sees it what it is. Not good. It's bad. Pearl Harbor, please. But yeah, it's.
I think the real cherry on top was again on the 1-year anniversary of January 6th, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi played this god awful "Dear Theodosia" from
Lin-Manuel.
Oh yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda. This is what they think of this day. It's a celebration of them, dry humping democracy.
I think even Hamilton rolled over on his grave on that one. So,
and
I love Lin-Manuel. I love the guy, but
Jay.
The Onion came out with a parody article about that right before they played it. Instead of the Democrats, instead of giving you policy, they're going to make you listen to Lin-Manuel. And then this happened, I think the 2 days after they wrote that article, and it was just way too on the nose. It was way too good. It was so hard to watch. That's another inspiring thing that you can get cringe from for a vaccine song.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, John, if you don't come up with a vaccine song by the end of this interview, we will rely on a full-on production by the next episode. You join us on.
I already got Fauci says get an ouchie, so I'm off to a good start. Yeah.
First, for one, can you really say no to? Give me one moment here, because I think you will probably be very pleased with this latest vaccine song if my other computer wouldn't crash.
Who sings this one? Who sang that one?
It's literally this one.
You gonna get corona from Mona. Don't vaccinate. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. You gotta vaccinate in the Lone Star State. Vaccination is so great. Vaccinate me all day long. Vaccinate your daddy and mom. Vaccinate my body.
Can you give me a shot of
Did he say vaccinate my body?
I didn't even get to the best part, which is vaccinate me in my dong.
Oh, that's what he said.
Well, I do have a line here. Yeah, get the Johnson in your Johnson, but whatever, So maybe we're on the same page, me and that dude. He can be in my video. Yeah.
So, John, you were never really political 20 years ago when you came out with all these hit songs. In fact, I think you were probably one of the more apolitical singers and songwriters out there. What changed for you? What inspired you to take this leap that not many artists take, which is not just going political, but going sort of anti-establishment and anti what most entertainers do, which is basically just virtue signal and share with everyone how woke they are and how anti-racist they are. And that's all they focus on. You're focusing on real shit and stuff that actually is important to people.
I had no intention of writing the song. I've always been a little careful. I certainly have a different worldview than most kind of in the artistic community. I'm kind of a centrist. I'm kind of a political orphan. I find myself agreeing with kind of both sides. I tend to lean right a little bit more than left. But it was personal for me. As we talked about, when we were seeing the people falling from planes, we were all just angry. And as a musician, I would bang on my piano just to like punch a bag. But the day our last soldier left, I got a call from a very good friend of mine. She does incredible humanitarian work around the world, and particularly in Africa. And she needed a contact. And I said, well, sure. What are you doing? And she said to me words that I still can't believe I'm repeating. She says, I'm organizing evacuations of American citizens from Afghanistan. And there was silence on the line. And I said, you're going to risk your life to go rescue the people we left behind. Because she's the kind of person that will go. She's not going to just fund it. And she said, yes. And I couldn't imagine that world. And that night, I just started writing some words down. Still wasn't intending to write a song, but as we talked about a little earlier, when the president came out with his extraordinary success speech, that scared me. I realized it was a political operation from the beginning. I hoped that General Milley in Austin would come out and clarify that, because I've supported the troops for 20 years. I've played for them. I've created CDs for them. I've always held the military in high esteem. But when they parroted that narrative, I realized that this was not a humanitarian, not a military operation, but it was something different. And I put the lyrics down that night. I recorded it the next day, and I kind of put it out without even thinking about it. I didn't expect much commentary on it. But it was something I felt I had to do. It was such a great disgrace. And as you mentioned, the fact that there was no accountability and people were trying to say, oh, boy, didn't we do a good job? When my friend was risking her life to rescue our citizens. So it came really quickly. And I didn't really even think about the consequences of putting it out, good, bad, or ugly. I just felt, as someone who had a platform, I had to make a statement. And I also noticed that nobody else was. I kept waiting for those icons of music, and we know who they are, who do all these benefit concerts and claim to be compassionate about their fellow man. But none of them seem to be writing anything, and they still haven't. So again, I had no intention of making this video until our veterans, I looked into their eyes, and I wanted to document it and let them know that we're not forgetting them, and we're not forgetting people doing the evacs, and that we're still calling for accountability. So it's really become a passion of mine. It's sitting in my gut, and I think it's a moral stain that every American feels. And I think most of them, whether they want to admit it or not, agree with the sentiments of that video.
Yeah.
I mean, we really do. It's very powerful. And to me, even though the 70s were like before my time and everything, that kind of anti-establishment video of the Vietnam War and stuff like that, it reminded me a lot of it, to showcase that we, no matter who's in office, we need to be able to talk about our failures and hold these people accountable. That's our job as every American citizen, not to be brainwashed and to just agree with anything and everything that they're doing. Last administration, this administration, but this has been, as you said it before, like a complete Orwellian takeover on the narrative of what happened. It was on the news for 3 months, and then it was gone. I felt like it was like a flash. And if we didn't have you make this video and compile, by the way, videos from other news sources that are on YouTube, so it's so weird that yours was the one that got cut off. Not just cut off. If you go on YouTube right now to look at it, they'll ask you 3 different windows if you really want to watch this video. It's so mind-boggling. And you have a warning on it before it even starts. Yeah. So all of that just goes to show that they have this Orwellian control over what is being shown, how it's being said, and how it's being used to fit their narrative and what agenda they want to push.
Yeah, I mean,
it is scary.
Yeah, I think to be fair, the media during the withdrawal was pretty good. You would watch CNN and MSNBC, and they were showing the images, and they were condemning it, and they were carrying the press conferences. But as soon as our last soldier got on that airplane, all of a sudden 90% of that went away. It's almost like they got the memo, and it is a great disgrace of our media. As I said, the reflection of this mirror really shows how tribalism, the malignancy of tribalism, affects the whole culture, particularly our media. It's funny. when they took the YouTube video down, and there was a lot of an outcry from the right. I have gotten more requests from Russian propaganda media than I have from the mainstream media, music media, entertainment media to talk about freedom of expression. And we all know if it was a song criticizing President Trump, and by the way, if President Trump put us here, I'd write the same song. The names would change, and I'd probably get that slot on The View that they're auditioning for, whatever my gender. And it just shows, it just exposes the shallowness and hypocrisy of the culture. And it is so dangerous because, as you said, if we can't have these conversations, if we can't argue about what went right, what went wrong, it's going to happen again. And we're not having those conversations because it's an extraordinary success. Nobody's been fired. So again, I really fear for the country, and it goes way beyond my song. It goes way beyond Afghanistan. And I don't know how it's going to play out. I think we're at a crossroads. I don't know if sanity is going to rule the day, or we're going to keep going down this Orwellian path of wokeness that I think may end to what America is. And that's scary. Just not for us. It's scary for the world.
Yeah, there's
and your point on tribalism too is the messaging from the CDC and everybody else, how quickly it can change during an election year compared to previous years, how they're stating a lot of the same things that you would get banned for. Talking about cloth masks, talking about different ways to be quarantined, talking about from COVID or with COVID, like all of the language is slowly starting to change, that if you were talking about this 18 months, not even 18 months ago, 6 months ago, you'd be banned off of every single platform.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also been a concerted effort to change, to shift the goalposts, really, because the things that have been happening, like, for example, as soon as Elizabeth Warren announced that she tested positive for COVID, then you started seeing articles about from corporate media outlets saying, "Oh, don't feel bad or don't feel ashamed if you catch COVID."
Right.
And like the year and a half prior, all they were doing was shaming people for getting COVID, particularly those on the right, those who have been basically hesitant to ever get the vaccine, and basically mocking people even for dying from COVID. I mean, how many times I've had to put so many people on the list for simply mocking somebody or dancing on someone's grave for dying from COVID. Now, all of a sudden you have Elizabeth Warren and then AOC get test positive for COVID. And all of a sudden, you're seeing a bunch of crocodile tears from all these people on the left. Like, oh, don't feel bad. It's okay. You're going to be strong. You can get through this. You're triple vax, quadruple vax. Like all this gaslighting. My question for you, John, is, do you not feel more radicalized by the day in this country that we're living in?
It's hard not to be, which again just keeps exacerbating the problem. And I think you're right. I think the blame for where we are really doesn't lie at the feet of our elected officials. Certainly they take responsibility for what they do. But why have we become so tribal? It's because the media is not honest. It's because they are incredibly biased. They tend to be a political operation, propaganda outlet for one side. And that's why their ratings are at 10, 20%, because they don't allow us to have the conversation. Back in the day, remember those shows, Crossfire, where people would have hard arguments and it would be productive and we could respect each other, that maybe we want the same goal, but we have different paths to get there. That does not exist, and also it doesn't drive ratings. So there's nobody who wants to put that on. So I really think the media has put it in this place, and I don't see them changing because they're all radicals. Journalism school now, they're taught by radicals, so they become radicals. You wonder why we're at, because we've been indoctrinating our kids for a generation, telling them how terrible America is. So I don't know how we get out of this. For me, I hope that my song inspires one other songwriter who maybe feels a little different to write a song, and maybe you pay it forward. What you guys are doing, having these podcasts and speaking of you, that's maybe different than the status quo. I truly believe there's more of us than them, but they're just a lot louder and they have the media. But I think this song shows we can go through them. We can go around them. It's being played around the world. It's being tweeted by senators. It's a song that's resonating with our veterans. So I don't think we should be intimidated. And I don't think we should be intimidated by cancel culture. You're only going to be canceled if you allow yourself to do it. And I do see signs. I don't know if I'd be interested if you guys see signs that you think that that the worm's turning a little bit on the woke.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Youngkin, of course, but but beyond that, if you guys see things that maybe they think sanity is returning to the culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Sarah Silverman as well, because Sarah Silverman had a period, an awakening, I would like to say, about this, because she was criticizing Kamala Harris and people were calling her racist.
Right.
And she went on her podcast and she's like, how are you going to call me racist? I didn't mention anything about her race or sex or anything. I'm just talking about what she is doing. And I think we've really lost that. And Democrats use that as a shield to hide it behind everything, really behind everything. If you're criticizing the administration, it's because you're racist and sexist, because Harris is the VP. You can't talk about the border.
And it doesn't work. Over time, he's crying wolf, right? It's if everyone's a racist, nobody's a racist. And I think you're right. I mean, Dave Chappelle, right? Okay, Dave Chappelle, like funniest guy in the world. Okay, he's seen the reality of it. There's a reason Joe Rogan dominates mainstream media, because he has an honest conversation and he's not blinded by his political bias. So,
yeah. On top, just to piggyback off of that, just this week, Rolling Stone published how many health officials or doctors are trying to warn. They sign on to this petition. For Spotify to deplatform Joe Rogan for health misinformation. Did they not realize that as soon as everyone these establishment types start to rally against a certain person like Joe Rogan, they just give him more power, because people now are only wanting to seek out this information because people like these health officials, these doctors, hate it. And the doctors have just been Anthony Fauci, Francis Collins, they've been lying to us for the last 2 years about COVID. And there's a trove of emails to prove that everything that they've done behind the scenes was to create a narrative that was anti whatever is rational. So this, targeted, this focused, Jay, what was the name of the Great Barrington Declaration? The approach to only focus on ensuring that people with comorbidities and the elderly and those who are immunocompromised, ensure that they are protected from getting COVID, and then just let everybody else live their lives. Well, everybody within the NIH and NIAID, like Fauci and Collins, they are literally colluding with the media, the corporate media, to try to establish a narrative that was anti-Great Barrington Declaration, so that everybody would have to lock down and government would have to control your life. John, I know you only focus a lot on veterans and all this other stuff, and we might be going off on a tangent here, but I mean, this COVID stuff, everything about it just screams the government just wants to implement, if not hard communism, at least soft communism.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Rolling Stone, because that's a good example of where the culture is going. Rolling Stone used to be about speak truth to power. They actually, they were actually fans of this thing called rock and roll. And the fact that they're now calling for, Matt Taibbi had a great article today about them, that they're now the censors, they're everything they used to hate, is a shame. But I think they reflect all the medias. But to your point about COVID, I think beyond COVID, I think this trend where science only matters if it helps my narrative has been truly exposed over the last couple of years. Children should not be wearing masks. Doctors say that. Everybody who studies COVID knows that. And they're wearing masks because it's a political action. People don't want to be sued. They want to be seen as, protecting the kids. But when science is only applicable to your narrative and then you discount it when it hurts your narrative, that is not science. That is not helpful for the country. And I think we've seen that throughout COVID. And you see look, I'm in California, right? Jay's in California. We're in Newsom land, all right, Mr. French Laundry. Okay, there's been no bigger hypocrite on COVID. It's decimated the businesses in California. It's decimated minority children who will never get those years back that they made stay home. Some of them didn't even have internet. So the price they put on the people they're supposed to say they care about the most, I won't use the word evil, but it's damn close.
We'll use it for you. It's fucking evil.
It's really fucking evil. And it goes back to the same point, because now you're hearing all of these other people who called mothers grandma killers for wanting to take their kids out to the zoo or a park, talking about how we can't keep the schools closed anymore. When just 12 months ago they were saying you were evil for thinking that kids could go to school. And who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for this learning deficit that we put these kids through for 2 years? I think 2 whole years. And I'm hoping this starts a parent revolution where they actually see and they actually can know that your school is not something that you just need to go and put your kids in like daycare and not be involved in and think everything is going to be okay. We have very questionable things, especially in states like California, happening within school rooms from K to 12. And they still smugly post that kind of stuff on Twitter or TikTok or stuff like that. It's happening out there. And I think people are waking up to it, and it scares them shitless. Well, I think they actually are.
No, look, before I would say my comment, I do think a lot of people like to hammer Fauci. I think Randi Weingarten is by far the biggest villain of this whole episode. What she has done with her teachers union, again, there's no words for it. But I think we've already seen it. I mean, it's not just COVID, it's CRT, right? So Youngkin would not be the governor of Virginia if it was not for CRT, probably COVID. And I think it's the one thing that may move some of these traditionally Democrat, but not radical liberal mothers in these swing states to be like, what are you're telling me my son was born racist? And I think if they keep it up, which they probably will. I mean, we saw the president's speech the other night. We're all racists if we don't think that Georgia should have better voting laws than Delaware. So yeah, I think it may move the needle. The other arguments that we tend to like talk about the culture, I think probably don't. But when it's your child, it's completely different, especially minorities. School choice is the one issue that could move African Americans into the Republican column. And I think we saw that during the last election. So yeah, there is opportunity. There is a culture shift, but we're still on that tightrope. We still don't know which way this thing's going to fall. But I agree with you, Jay.
But I've seen it happen in real life because my mom is from Arkansas. She's white as rain, German, Irish, all that stuff. And she was a huge, I want to even say lefty. She bought into the whole thing. So she came to visit me here to California, and COVID happened. So she was locked down with me for 6 months. Oh. So we were able to go through these things and talk about it. And she's like, once she started to understand and listen to these arguments of CRT and what they are and all of this kind of stuff. And I questioned her, and I'm like, were you born racist? Like, are you these things? Am I half racist? Am I born half racist? Like, should I hate half of myself? Because these are the things that they're actually teaching students, kids, 7, 8 years old, when they're talking about CRT and talking about whiteness, talking about all this kind of stuff. You come from being, I'm going to say being like 12 or 13, just to give it to her, when Martin Luther King was giving all these speeches and all this kind of stuff, talking about, I mean, I think we lost that. I really do. I think the 90s was a term in place where everybody was like, your character is what matters. Nobody gave a shit about race, all of that kind of stuff. And then slowly this started to infect people, really did. This victimhood mentality, this CRT mentality. Somebody has to be the oppressor you can be the victim, so your argument makes more sense and you're more right the more victimized you are. It was eye-opening to her seeing some of these arguments being made.
The radicalizations happened with me too, Jay. I mean, when you and I first became friends, I was definitely way more liberal. And nowadays I've just had enough. And I think a lot of this started not just through the age of the internet, but under the Obama administration, where identity politics then became, it reigned supreme. That if you made any criticisms, just like where you mentioned with Sarah Silverman, like the criticism of Barack Obama became quote unquote racist because it was just a Republican criticizing his policies, even if he didn't mention anything about his race. Of course, there was racist criticism made about Barack Obama, but you could just discount that outright. When people had legitimate criticisms of the president at the time, there were many people who simply wanted to play identity politics and say, no, what you're saying is racist. You can't criticize the president because he's black. Well, why not? Why can't we criticize the president? Oh, because he simply has a different skin color? Like, do people not understand? Like, you're basically putting someone who doesn't have the same skin color as you, you're giving them a handicap. What's that called again, Jay? Oh yeah, that's right, racism.
No, you're right. I think it was a political strategy, right? Because I think they, especially early on, nobody wants to be called racist. So you go on defensive right away, and then you don't have to argue about whatever you're talking about, because if the person you're talking to is racist, sexist, homophobic, then they're evil. So their arguments don't matter. So we don't need to have a conversation. And again, I think that's perpetuated by the media. And that's why we are who we are. This may sound like, I don't know, radical, but I think Martin Luther King would be canceled today, or he'd have or he'd have a show on Fox, because you're right. It's like, how dare we look at each other as human beings and look at each other's character and their example and judge them for their actions? How dare we do that? No, we have to start with skin color. And as you said, I can't think of anything more racist, but here we are.
Yeah. Well, we only have a few more minutes left with you, John, before you got to go. So we're going to open it up to the floor, to the Habibis who are currently watching. If you have any questions for John, go ahead, flood them comments, hit us with your questions. We'll go ahead and screen them beforehand. And in the meantime, while we take your questions and while you write them up, John, any lyrics on that vaccine song that you've been working hard on?
So we started with Fauci says, get the ouchie. Certainly be wiser to get the Pfizer. Take the Johnson in the Johnson, put some Charles in your Bronson. Yeah, right. Do you even know who Charles Bronson is?
Yeah.
Warp your speed, fill your need, make it bleed. There it is. That's my best Spinal Tap rendition of a vaccine song.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. I love the start of this. And before we take this question from Anthony, John, if there was a way for me to fund the production of your own vaccine song, would you do it?
Well, we'll just do it together. You sing on it, and then we'll just put it out, and we'll split
I'll make a beat for it.
We'll split the $3. Yeah.
Anthony Rivera.
I just wanted to highlight this comment from Anthony Rivera. It feels like an eternity since Afghanistan, especially because there's been silence. So he just wanted to say that he's glad you wrote this song because people need to remember. And I think, honestly, they will. They will. This has been a very, very powerful song. And I don't think when Superman was made out to be the anthem after 9/11, I mean, you had you didn't write it for that reason. You never wrote anything political for that reason or anything. Did that sort of, like, how did that make you feel when you saw it be adapted to it?
It's been 20 years. I still have a hard time answering that question. Certainly you never want a song you write to have to be associated with such a horrible event. At the same time, we see how music can heal and provide solace in ways other mediums can't. And there were so many folks that Superman mattered to them, especially in New York City and DC. And I think with this song too, it's a different community. It's really the veterans. But another reason I made the video too is I wanted one statement from an artist. Like, as you said, you can go back to the 60s and 70s. You can get a feeling about Vietnam from listening to the songs. You get a feeling about the culture when you listen to music. They're kind of a statement of the historical record. But there was nothing in Afghanistan. So I wanted at least one. And I appreciate the comment. And we're not done. We have more projects coming that will keep the light on Afghanistan. We're trying to aim towards a concert for Afghanistan later in the summer. I'm doing a show called Meet the Heroes because I think it's critical that America meets the heroes that are keeping the promise, doing the evacs. Afghanistan fills us with shame. We don't want to talk about it. But you know what? The shining light of this whole thing, and it's historic, are these private Americans that are quitting their jobs, draining their bank accounts, between going to take their kids to soccer and going to work. They're organizing the sophisticated evacuations to get those we've abandoned out. And we're going to tell that story. We're going to let America meet those people, because that is capital A America. It's not the administration. They'll be gone. But, those heroes and that will to do the right thing will still be with us. So we still got a lot of work to do. And by no means are we, is this video our last statement?
Danielle C. has the question, what inspires your songwriting, John?
If you go back to artists, of course, I grew up in the 70s and on the great songwriters, but, inspirations come in strange places. They can be observations like Blood on My Hands was. They can be personal kind of feelings, kind of like Superman was. They can be little Post-it notes to yourself like 100 Years was. And I always say there's always a great song in a room if I could just see it. I'm always kind of listening for it. I'm sure somebody said a comment tonight that it would probably be a great title for a song. But creativity is kind of magical. You never know where it's going to come from. That's why I admire the great songwriters, Joni Mitchell, Dylan, go down the list. It's for me, I have to work at it. It doesn't come naturally. But when you write a song and you think you got something right and you play it from beginning to end for the first time, it is kind of a religious experience. And that's what keeps me coming back.
That's great.
Maybe Cringe is where you need to go, because you wrote a really good vaccine song in a matter of like seconds.
Cringe your syringe. Yes.
I cannot wait for this. Nick has a question. John, been a fan since your songs appeared on Smallville. Any inside stories from back then on having your songs featured in shows?
Yeah, it was huge back then. To get a song in one of those shows was great for your career. Everybody would hear it. In Smallville, they had it as their series finale episode, so that was an honor. And of course, being associated with Superman, I thought was cool. And I've been really lucky to have a lot of my songs be used in film, and it's also kind of taught me that if you get the right images with the right music, it can really be powerful. It's geometric, and I think that kind of experience. I actually put a piano track under the news clips you saw. If you would see the news clips, I think it would have an impact. But having the music underneath it, I think, gave it more of an artistic, emotional experience. So yeah, it's been fun, and I'm not sure I'll get any more offers for those, but I had a good run.
Would you ever write a follow-up to Superman, like maybe a dedication to like Batman or Wonder Woman?
Well, we saw Superman 2 and we saw how that worked, so probably not.
And I would imagine your song towards Batman would basically be slandering someone who is rich and goes out and beats up people in basically their underwear with no special powers.
And I know that's all three of our fantasies, so we'll just leave it there.
It's like he did bath salts beforehand. Now, I just have to highlight this. Danielle C says, "Glad to see Blurry Siraj is here for a special guest." Geez, now I don't know if you could tell, John, but my camera is the worst, and I have not made any changes to it. It just so happens I go out of focus pretty much in and out throughout the entire show. So, you now can witness for yourself just how much of a boomer I really am.
You look perfect to me. Yeah, we're all in and out of focus these days.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Before I let you go, John, and we love to get you back on. By the way, we've had a lot of fun tonight, and honestly, we like to keep the good times rolling, especially in dark days like these. Anything that you want to plug before we let you go?
I would like to dedicate this song to you guys because I appreciate your voices and I appreciate you doing what you're doing and being willing to speak out. I got nothing to plug except my Fauci Get an Ouchie song. But if you'd like, I'd be happy to sing Superman for you.
Hell yeah, let's go.
It's a little different on guitar, but it's kind of fun. I can't stand to fly. I'm not that naive. I'm just out to find a better part of me. I'm more than a bird, more than a plane, more than some pretty face beside a train, and it's not easy to be me. No lighters? There it is. No.
Let's go.
Wish that I could cry, fall upon my knees, find a way to lie about a home I'll never see. It may sound absurd, don't be naive. Even heroes have the right to bleed, or maybe disturbed. Won't you concede? Even heroes have the right to dream, and it's not easy to be me. And up and away from me, now it's alright. You can all sleep sound tonight. I'm not crazy like Spencer or anything. I can't stand to fly. I'm not that naive. Men were meant to ride with clouds between their knees. I'm only around in a funny red sheet, digging for kryptonite on this one-way street. Only a man, a funny red sheet, looking for special things inside of me. It's not easy to be me.